The latest version of ACT, version 23, was launched on Friday the 5th of March 2021 in the UK. So we wanted to let you know what to expect if you're upgrading from a previous ACT version. The buzzwords around version 23 are performance and usability, and that manifests itself in three areas where there have been either a complete redevelopment or significant enhancement of ACT components. The first of those is the Microsoft Outlook integration. Now, Microsoft Outlook integration is a feature that's widely used, but has also historically been the cause of some frustration in terms of its reliability and performance. And ACT redeveloped this component for version 21.1 update 4. So if you're using that version or later, it's likely that you've already got the new Outlook integration. If you're using an earlier version, then you'll be using the legacy integration, and then this will be brand new. What's happened with the version 23 release is they've just refined this new component. It's built using a completely different architecture, taking advantage of the new ACT Web API. So it's a means of integrating with ACT, which is much more flexible and robust than what was there before. So the functionality is similar to the previous version, I suppose, but the first release of this new integration component in version 21 did have some issues, and this version 23 has been designed to iron out those issues and just make it more robust, improve the performance, improve the features, etc. So we'll just take a look at those in a moment. The next area is a complete redevelopment of the Microsoft Word add-in. Now this again is designed to take advantage of the new ACT Web API integration feature, but also it uses more modern methods to integrate with Microsoft products as well. So a lot of this development is about using the latest in terms of what you can do to integrate with ACT, but also taking advantage of the Microsoft Office features for integration. So as a platform, it's more robust, scalable and future-proof, but there are some specific differences in the features that I really want you to be aware of. So we'll look at those in a moment as well. The third area is ACT Marketing Automation. This is a core part of the product now. It's been in the product for a few years, but with every version there's always a bundle of new features that enrich the capability of ACT Marketing Automation. So whether you're just using that to send out bulk emails like a newsletter or something on an ad hoc basis, or whether you're in fact using it as part of a much more complex and sophisticated drip marketing or automated marketing campaign structure, there are some new features in there that I think will be useful to most users of that product. So we'll look at that as well. A key component of that, by the way, is a preference management and unsubscribe center, which I think can be really useful in helping you to reduce list churn. The fourth area is not a particular product set or a feature focus, but just general bug fixes. So along the way, issues are always being identified with ACT by partners such as ourselves, by clients and user organizations such as yours. This all gets fed back. And of course, those issues that appear to be causing the most pain among the user community are the ones that get addressed first. There are 50-odd bug fixes. Some of these will be very, very minor. I'm not going to go through all of these, but what I will do is share a link towards the end of this video where you can go and review those bug fixes. So if there's something that's been needling you that's really been quite irritating and causing a problem, you can see if it's in those listed bug fixes. If you can't find it in there and there's still an issue, please do get in touch with us and we can offer you some further advice or let you know where we think that is in the development cycle for improvement. Now, before we get into looking at those new features, just a few other simple points to make that are pretty important. The first one of these is that version 23 has no schema change. Now, if you're just using ACT Premium Cloud via the browser, that's not going to make a great deal of difference to your life. But if you're using ACT with synchronizing databases, so remote databases, that might be the main database is on your server and you have people working on laptops where they have a copy of the database on that laptop synchronizing with the main publisher database, or it might be that your main database is hosted by ACT in the ACT Premium Cloud and you have offline databases that synchronize with that main database. If there's a schema update, it's always important that every single application on all PCs, all laptops, and the server is upgraded at the same time. Otherwise, synchronization won't work. This release has no schema change. So what that means in theory anyway, is that you can upgrade Act to version 23 on your laptop, for example, but if the database copy is still running version 22, it should still synchronize. Now I'm saying should because we're a bit long in the tooth and we know that things don't always happen 100% as anticipated, but that is the design criteria around version 23. There's no schema update, so you should be able to carry on synchronizing. Of course, if there are issues, you can contact us and we can help you with that. The update is automatically deployed to hosted servers, so if you're using Act Premium Cloud or the new Act SaaS product, so it's a hosted Act product, you don't need to do anything in terms of the fact that your database will be just upgraded to version 23. The one difference that there might be, of course, is that if you're using the hosted product and you've got a local copy of Outlook on your PC and there is the Outlook integration component embedded in there, it's likely that you'll be prompted to reinstall the new version of the Outlook component. Again, it should be quite obvious and quick and seamless in terms of what you need to do, but as always, you can talk to us if there are any kind of problems and we can make sure that it's been properly updated. A third thing just to mention, I don't think this affects too many of our clients now, the old legacy version of Act Email Marketing. So this was the email marketing tool that was provided as part of Act before the launch of Act Marketing Automation, before the launch of the AMA tool that's embedded in Act now. That product is end of life. So that product is not supported in version 23. So if for some reason you are still using the old legacy Act email marketing tool, then please do talk to us before upgrading to version 23 because things will stop working. There is a migration path that we can help you with through to AMA though. So without further ado, let's just take a look around those three areas of improvement then. So let's take a look at the Outlook integration enhancements and begin with the creation of an activity. So this is where an email is received and we want to create an Act activity as a consequence of this inbound email. So you'll see under the Act ribbon there are all our controls. If you're using an older version of Act, this will look a little different, although the functionality behind these buttons is pretty much the same as that which was previously there behind the smaller coloured icons that you would have been familiar with. We can create contacts from email, create a new activity, attach contacts, etc. So if we go to create a new activity from the inbound email, there are just a couple of minor changes to the new component here. First of all, they've introduced an all-day checkbox, and what that does is allows you to create the activity, but it can be timeless. So before you had to specify a start time particularly, and then there would implicitly be an end time for every activity. But of course, if you're just creating a phone call, follow-up reminder or something, you might want to schedule it for a particular day in the future, but you might not be precious about the time. So checking the all day box will just set it as a timeless activity in Act. The second change that they've made is down in the lower part. Of course, it copies the content of the email into the details panel. That's not new, but in the attendees tab, you can also add other attendees to that activity. So it will by default be recorded against the Act contact record for well, in this case, Tim Venables, it's matching on the email address. But what it used to do was also include in there your own My Record. So the activity would appear against your own My Record as well as the contact record. That wasn't great in that it's scheduled for you anyway as the user, so you would see it in your task list and calendar, but you didn't really need to see it against the My Record of your own user profile. So now it just automatically attaches it to the contact record of the email author. I can click on add attendees, of course, and I can go on and add further people to that activity if I want to. you can see using the control in the upper half of the screen. I've only got a very small database here, by the way, with 4 or 5 contacts in there, and you can see the My Record of any user has a clear icon to identify this as a database user. But if I want to also associate it with another contact, I can just highlight them and add them to the record. I can search for any other contacts in the database to add to that activity by email address, any component of their name or company, and it's using the contains logic, by the way. So I don't have to begin to type the beginning of their name. So as you can see in this example, if I select name and type in FR, it picks up frog. So it's quite a decent deep search mechanism to find contacts in the database. Please do be aware though that it will only locate contacts that do have something in the email address field. Now the old version of the integration used to allow you to search and find contacts irrespective of whether they had an email address in their ACT record or not. This component will only look for records with something in the email address field. There is another third and final change to Outlook. What it is if you received an iCal invitation, so somebody sent you a calendar invitation to an event through Outlook, you can accept the invitation and it goes on to create an event in your Outlook calendar, but also in your ACT diary. But what it wasn't previously doing was copying the details of the location field from the Outlook iCal meeting invitation into the location field in the ACT activity, but that it now does. So let's take a look next at the email history recording. There are a couple of enhancements here. And the first of those is to do with the email address fields in ACT. So previously what had happened is if you sent an email through Outlook or you received an email into your inbox and had the settings such that it would either be automatically recorded against the ACT contact, or if you chose to attach the email to the contact record, it would always match on the email address, but it would be looking in the primary email address field of the ACT contact record, and it would ignore any other email addresses in other secondary or custom email address fields within the contact record. So this has now been changed, so it will now seek to attach emails against alternative or custom email address fields within the contact. So in my example, if I go to this email from Tim Venables and click on Quick Attach, and Quick Attach, by the way, it works the same as Attach to ACT Contact. But if we go back to this record in the background and just initiate a refresh of the screen, you can see now that the history has been recorded by matching an email address which wasn't in the primary email address field. The second enhancement, it's really a bug fix that they've included in this, is that when history was recorded previously, it had created a history but with a history type of call attempted, suggesting it was a phone call that had been attempted but not successfully completed. That was obviously very wrong, and now of course email histories are properly recorded as email attached. So if you're sending an email, it would be recorded as email sent. Now here's a quick by the way on sending emails, and this is, I think, different than in the previous version of Outlook in terms of history recording. What would happen in the past is if you clicked on Attach to ACT Contacts with the email highlighted and providing it found a matching contact, it would include that contact detail already in the lower part of this screen in this particular case, and assume that that's the target contact to whom you wanted to attach the email. In this version, clicking on Attach to Contacts assumes you're starting again from scratch in terms of trying to find the record to whom you will attach the inbound email. So you again initiate a search from the top of the screen here, locate the contact, add that contact, and click OK to attach the email to that contact record. Going back into Outlook, if I click on the Quick Attach to Contacts, it will automatically look for and find the contact record that I'm targeting by matching the email address. It's just that it doesn't open the dialog window. You get a little pop-up in the bottom right hand corner of the screen to confirm that the history has been created for that contact. So some slightly different behaviours there. Just as a quick refresher, or if you've not used this new email integration component at all, under Change Preferences in the Act ribbon, the behaviours of your email integration are managed here, and also they can be managed within Act through the previous method of going into Tools, Preferences and the Email System Setup Wizard. But you've got a couple of tabs in Change Preferences. There's Auto Attach, allows you to automatically record a history as you send an email from Act, and of course you've got the same options. It's either not to record an email history by default, or the date time subject and message body, or the entire email enveloped together with all its attachments and attached to the Act Contact Record History tab, which obviously is a bit more weighty as a solution. And you can by default have the history be marked as private, and you can exclude the recording of a history against your own My Record, that's your own Act Contact record against your user profile. The middle drop down here references automatic recording of histories when you receive emails. Now I'd have to say that most Act users tend not to have this enabled. It's quite clever in that what it can do is, if you do enable this, it looks at every email that arrives in your inbox, tries to find an associated contact record in Act that contains the same email address in any of its email address fields, and if it can find one, it will automatically attach the email to that Act contact record. So clever, but often what we find is it fills the database up very quickly with a lot of unwanted email content. So maybe you send something deep and meaningful to a client and they write back and say thanks, and that email goes into Act. So it's generally more than most people want, but it's there if you think it would be useful. And then down at the bottom you can create an Act activity when accepting a meeting. So if somebody sends you a meeting request, you can automatically create an activity in the database or not do so. And then the option at the bottom, edit and create activity. So it will assume that you want to create an activity, and it will open a new Act activity on screen and allow you to make any modifications or changes to that activity before it's created in Act. Of course, it's going to create itself in your Outlook calendar as well. The other tab there at the top, the Quick Attach tab, refers to the default settings for manually attaching emails. So if you click on the Quick Attach button in the ribbon, what happens, what elements of data are recorded. Down here at the bottom, this is new in the current version, it wasn't in the previous version, so you can specify which emails are referenced when it's matching Act contact records. So in the old version of the Outlook integration, it used to only look at the email address of the email sender, but in the new version you can choose whether to look at the sender, the to address, CC, or everybody associated with the email. So anybody that appears in the to line or the CC line, that would be. You can have it create new contact records if they're not found. So if you set it to automatically record histories for inbound emails or automatically record outbound emails as histories, but there is no contact record, it can automatically create them. But bear in mind they're going to be very scant. All that's going to be in those new contact records is going to be an email address and the content of the from line, which is not always nicely customized as the person's name, so just be cautious with that one. Now let's come on to the second new thing, and this is genuinely a new thing. This is the redevelopment of the Word integration. So if you're a user of Mail Merge with Act, so that is to say you're using a Word document template, an ADT extension template, to create either letters or emails within Act, this is going to be important to you. The functionality as it's presented to you through the Act application is pretty much the same. So if I want to go and customize or create a new template, as ever, I'll go up to the right menu and let's come down to Edit Template, and I'm just going to choose to edit the standard letter template. So far, nothing new. And as you'll be familiar with, the template opens on screen, and of course the field list pops up as it did before, enabling you to choose any field in terms of ACT contact fields, and including any custom fields, and use those fields within the body of your letter. You can just add them in as usual, so nothing new there. The newness begins in the ACT tab, the ACT ribbon should I say. So if you go to the ribbon, you'll notice that it looks a bit different. The buttons are styled to be very similar to those new buttons in the Outlook integration as well. The first thing that I wanted to point out to you here is that if you've been using a previous version of ACT, it will contain the old legacy Word integration. We found that that doesn't always successfully remove the old integration from the system. So you'll see in the top left hand corner there's still the ACT drop down. This was the old ACT drop down that was associated with the original legacy Word integration. That doesn't work. It doesn't do anything anymore, so please try and ignore it. And if it's more than mildly irritating to you, get in touch with us and we'll offer a solution to remove that from your machine if needs be. But to the right of that, the more modern looking buttons, these are all associated with the new integration. And of course the features are similar. So show fields shows this list of fields when you're editing or building a new template, so you can introduce the mail merge fields. Attach a copy of a document to ACT, record a history, send email. These are all pretty much the same sort of features that were in the old component. So what's different? Well, it's the structure underneath the thing. It's using this web API to build a relationship between Word and ACT. And the main differences I think that you'll want to be aware of are the way in which it records history and a copy of the document when you've done a mail merge against the ACT contact record. So let's just come out of here for a second. So if I want to send a letter to, let's say I've got a lookup of 5 people to whom I want to send a letter. So write other document from template letter. So as usual, it will use the template to create in this case, a 4-page one, because one of those records was my record. So there are 4 client organizations there, 4 client contacts. So there's the document, the mail merge document, as you'll be familiar with. But I want to record a history of that record against each of those 4 contacts. So I'd go to the ACT button. Now historically what you do is you just print that document, and then as you go to print it would invite you to record a history. So if we go print and record, there's now this print and record button. I get the opportunity to create a history and record a copy of the document against the target records, but it doesn't remember the context of which records I've selected in the lookup for that mail merge. I have to go and search for them again using this search control. Very different experience in that regard. So you'll notice here that I can search by email address or person's name, company name, or I can include the members of an ACT group. Now in my example, I've just picked 4 random contacts to run the mail merge against, and I've got them arranged in a lookup. And you'll notice here that there's no option to record a history against a lookup. So the important thing here is, in order to record a history against those target contacts, I'll have to first of all put them in a group. So let's go back, not save that. So let's pick my 4 contacts. I'll just highlight the 4, look up the selected, so to omit the my record. I've got the 4 contact records there. I'm going to come over to the related tasks and create a group of contacts. And I'm going to call it Will's Test 123. Click the save button and I've got my 4 contacts. I can now go back to the right menu, other document from template, letter, go through the same process again, go to the ACT ribbon, print and record, and this time I've got the option to go to group, select a group, Will's Test 123, click OK, and then I can decide to record a history. I can put a narrative in there to describe the history, and if I want to, I can attach a copy of the document. Just bear in mind, as always, and this is no different in the new version or the old version, if I proceed to attach a copy of the document and there are 4 contacts in my lookup or group, and it's created a 4-page Word output, it will be an entire copy of the 4-page document attached to each contact. That's always been the case, and there's nothing new there. So just bear that in mind. If you're doing a mail merge to a large group of contacts, then it's probably better not to attach a copy document. Just refer to the template in the subject line there, in the regarding line. So if I go to any one of those contacts now, I should be able to go to the history and see a letter sent history, and there's an attachment of the 4-page document. So that's quite a different experience. There's also the record to history button, which you had in the old legacy record history, and that works in pretty much the same way. Again, the difference is that what it used to do in the old version is it would already understand the context of to whom you wanted to record the history against, because you'd created the lookup or the group or whatever it was. But now it doesn't do that. It'll allow you to give a name for the history, but then when you come to select the contacts, you're back to square one. You've got to start again by finding those contacts by name, email address or group, etc. So the functionality is slightly different. In some ways, I've got to be honest and say it feels like a backward step, but then again, if the platform is more robust, it's more durable, it's more scalable, it's future-proofed, so it's going to carry on working with Office versions of the future, then that's got to be a good thing. I think probably the most valuable thing about Act version 23 in terms of the Word integration, though, to mention, is that it does support now 64-bit Word, whereas the previous versions only used to support 32-bit. So there is some good stuff in there as well. Now I need to draw your attention to another characteristic of the Word integration, which is going to be important if you have more than one database. Now the previous version of Word, the way it would work is you'd log into a database and then you'd go to the right menu and proceed to run a mail merge or produce a document from a template. And when you sought to then record a history or attach a copy of the document, it would understand the context of the database that you'd initiated the mail merge from. So it would see all the contacts in the current database. This doesn't work like that. So the integration between Microsoft Word and your database in the new version is managed by the same configuration that you use to set up the email integration. So in my example, if I go to email preferences, this is the same window you'll see if you go to the Tools and Preferences menu. So in here, this is where you set up the integration between Act and your Outlook for email history recording. This is no different. It's always been like this, and it's no different now. And you can see that here I've set the email system up to link my Outlook to the current database that I'm logged into. It's called Act V23 database for my test. Now that is also the database that my Word integration is looking at. So that's fine if I'm running a mail merge from this particular database, but if I was to log out of this database and log back into an alternative database and then ran a mail merge, I could do that, but when I went to record a history, it would only see the contacts in this original Act V23 database, not the database I was currently logged into. So that's an important thing to bear in mind. If you have multiple databases and you need to rely on Word integration for mail merge, be mindful that if you want to record histories, you will need to effectively swap the target database to the live database that you're working with when you come to run the mail merge using the email preferences email system setup wizard, which is sort of slightly counterintuitive and could be irritating if you are doing that sort of thing often. Because of course the moment that you switch the database to another database for the purposes of recording a history of the creation of a Word mail merge document, it's no longer going to be recording email histories. I think this is a problem that they're going to need to resolve fairly quickly. In the meantime, if that's going to cause real headaches for you, it may cause you to consider whether you leap forward with the upgrade to version 23, or talk to us, because there are a number of alternatives. There are various plugins and add-ons and other complementary technologies that we can bring in to enhance the functionality of ACT, including how histories are recorded for documents and how mail merge works. So if you do want to move forward with the version 23 upgrade, and maybe you need to do that to take advantage of 64-bit Office or what have you, but you're concerned about the limitations of the Word integration history recording, talk to us, because there could be ways that we can help get around that. So let's take a look at the AMA changes. By far the most significant and, in my opinion, valuable new change is the introduction of preferences, so preference management. Now this is all about unsubscribe, and of course it's a legal requirement to give our recipients an opportunity to unsubscribe if they wish to do so, and you'll know if you've used AMA that it doesn't allow you to create a campaign unless you include an unsubscribe link in the footer of the email. Now the impact of somebody clicking on that link is that their email address is then suppressed in your ACT email marketing system, such that you will not then subsequently be able to send them an email through the ACT marketing automation. Now that's fine, if they want to opt out, they want to opt out. There's nothing you can do about that. But often people choose to opt out because they didn't like the particular content that they were looking at, but they might not necessarily want to opt out of all communications that you send them. So the idea of this is they've got a couple of choices here. They can either opt out, so if they want to say, never darken my email inbox with your material again, they can opt out completely, but it gives you the opportunity to offer them the chance to set preferences. So maybe you want to allow them to opt out from sales promotion materials, but they'd be happy to opt into newsletters or perhaps critical product updates. So you're giving them the choice. So when they click on the unsubscribe button, rather than immediately suppressing them, it takes them to a landing page where they can then choose how they want to allow you to engage with them in the future. And I think it's a great tool to try and reduce that list churn and keep people subscribed. So the way it works is, in the admin area of ACT Marketing Automation, there's now an option called Preference Center. So in the Preference Center, you can create as many different sets of preferences as you like. Now I've created one here as an example just to show you that what this means is that once you've created this preference structure that enables people to tell you what they want to receive, you don't have to just use that particular preference page for all your campaigns. You can have different sets of preferences for different campaigns, for different emails that you send out to different groups of people. So it is ultimately flexible. But what I've done is, in my particular case, if I show you that I've set up on the contact screen 3 checkboxes, so critical product updates, new product promotions, and newsletters. And what I'm actually going to do is, if somebody clicks on the unsubscribe link in my email, I'm just going to ask them what they want to unsubscribe from. Do you want to unsubscribe from everything or just certain elements according to these 3 fields here? And when they choose or make those preferences, it'll put a tick in the boxes that they want to unsubscribe from, and then going forward what we'll do is just exclude those checked boxes from campaigns in the future. So the way that we do that is in Marketing Automation. As you can see, here's my protection page that I've set up. I'll just very quickly show you the form. So the form will ask them for an email address. It will say, please tell us what time of communications you no longer wish to receive, and then I'm giving them the 3 check boxes, or finally that you can unsubscribe from everything. And all you do is you can sit that form within a skin so it looks the way that you want it to look. So my random example is presented to you here. So when they click on the unsubscribe button, rather than just being unsubscribed, they get this control. They're asked to put in an email address, and they just choose specifically what they want to unsubscribe from. So in terms of introducing the preference selection into the email, in the footer you still need to have an unsubscribe link, but also you can have a manage your contact preferences or similar text to signpost people towards that control rather than opting out. And all you do is when you introduce the text, you highlight your anchor text, and under the special links you can either select unsubscribe, or preferences. And here's my act list protection page, but as mentioned, there could be different sets of protection queries and questions and options depending on what the campaign is all about. Another feature of version 23 is also that you can create different unsubscribe pages in a similar way. So you have to have an unsubscribe link in there, but what you can do is create different unsubscribe pages so that the unsubscribe experience could be different for different campaigns, different contacts, etc. And also you can include further questions in your unsubscribe. So when they click on unsubscribe, they can just be opted out of everything, or you can ask them for further information by creating a form-based solution that interacts with the unsubscribing recipient. So the creation of the unsubscribe forms works in the same way, and then under the actions and properties, when you're creating your email, you can choose which unsubscribe landing page the recipient of this campaign will see. So a whole load of flexibility all around that campaign list management that should help to reduce churn. Now next up, they've added some, well, I suppose cosmetic, but also functional features in there to help you to manage a busy AMA account. So you might over time build a long list of various campaigns. You might have a long list of various email templates for various different purposes, and it helps to organize them by folders. So they've added this function to enable you to go into the admin area and select account folders, and you can create different folder structures for campaigns, or let's just create a new one in my test database here for templates. So if I want to create a template folder to store all my ACT email templates in, I can do that. So I can go on and add various different folders to contain different campaigns, templates, assets, etc. So once I've created those templates, if I now go to, those folders for my email templates, if I now go to the email templates area and change to grid view, you'll see this folder structure appears on the left hand side. I can expand and collapse. And if I locate all templates in the templates folder with ACT contained within the name, in this case, I can list them and then drag them into that ACT folder. So over time, everything becomes categorized and easy to find. There are a few other AMA improvements, such as landing page impressions, for example. So if anybody's working with landing pages that enable you to see how many times people have visited your forms, where you're using an ACT marketing automation landing page as a form to collect information from people who are perhaps visiting your website, and then using that information to create new ACT contact records or update existing contact records. There's always been visibility of what pages are completed, but what they're now giving you is visibility of those situations where people have gone to the landing page as what we call an impression, but perhaps not gone on to complete it. So that's impressions. The number of impressions is measured. So you can see if people are going to the form but not filling it in, you can detect from that whether perhaps there might be an issue with the form, or whether you need to make it more streamlined or improved. Also, in terms of visibility and making the system more easy to use, they've added a Teams function, so you can create teams of users and give visibility of what a team of users is working on from an AMA perspective. You can import templates into ACT Marketing Automation now, and you can export templates from the system. So not in HTML, but it imports and exports via a JSON format, JSON, which is quite flexible actually, and a lot of other systems do use that structure as well. It certainly means that you can easily share templates between various different AMA accounts, or if we've worked on a template for you, we can export it and send it back to you, or if you're struggling with a template, you can effectively send it to us and we can work on it and send it back to you when we've resolved the issue. There are some other cosmetic improvements. So for example, if I'm looking at a complex campaign, so this is an example of a nurture campaign, there are some controls that allow me to click on the plus and minus to zoom in, zoom out. Of course, you can also do that with your scrolling your mouse wheel button. Campaigns have always been listed down the screen, but now you can use this horizontal flow control to represent them in a different way if it's easy for you to work with them, moving left to right across the screen. So you can manipulate the presentation of how the campaign looks, and this control here resets it to its original structure. Coming back to template design, they've added a couple of extra drag and drop elements that you can bring into the email template. So these include menu. So menu over here, if we drag that in, you can see that it gives you the opportunity to include various different menu items. So it's just a pre-formatted menu if you want to, in a newsletter, link to various content. So once the menu control is in place, you can start adding menu items, just have a label for each one and URL for that destination. Now, of course, the destination can be a web page, or it could open a new email to enable the recipient to contact you by email. It could, if they were using a mobile phone, enable them to make a call or send a message to you directly. Or it could link a file, so you could have the hyperlink there, downloading perhaps a PDF or a product brochure, etc. And then with this menu structure, you just go on adding further menu items in the same way. So once you've included as many menu items as you like, there are some controls to determine the layout, whether it's horizontal or vertical, letter spacing, padding, and just the presentation of that information. So there are a variety of controls here. You can also customize how it appears on a mobile device. That might be different. So let's say we want the background color of a control to appear in green, and let's make the text a little bit larger with a rounded icon. So the way that looks is if we just go to the top left hand corner under actions, the preview allows us to see how this would appear on an email that was read in a full format, like on a laptop or a desktop in Microsoft Outlook. You'd get the menu options presented as you've determined, listed horizontally or vertically. But if I go to the top right hand corner and click on mobile, we get to see that if somebody's seeing this on a mobile device, they'd see it as what we call a burger menu. So you can click on the button, if you like, and it expands to show the options. So pretty much like a responsive web page would do on a mobile phone. So it's a little thing, but it's pretty neat. Now they've also added a control to introduce a Giphy, if I pronounce that correctly. They're basically GIFs, so they're animated images. So I can put the control in there, and once it's in place, I can click on the button to add a GIF or a Giphy, and it takes me to a library. Whether these find their place in your kind of professional emails, or if you're business to consumer, maybe you'll find more in there to entertain. But it's a searchable library of free GIFs, for want of a better description, that you can introduce into your template. So for example, if I was to type in, I don't know, carrot, for example, I'm presented with lots of options to use. Whether I would want to use them or not, I don't know, but select any one of those and it just basically drops it in to the template. So you can maybe, it's all about differentiation and separating your email from the crowd. And of course the things about this GIFs, because they're animated, they tend to stand out. They're not seen immediately in desktop emails, but they are on mobile phones presented in full animation mode as soon as they're visible to the recipient. So they can be used just to grab the attention of the person that you're trying to engage. If I want to see what that looks like, of course, I can quickly push out a test. As always, of course, when seen in Outlook, it's presented as an image, so you don't see it straight away unless you bother to download pictures. Then it drops in and starts animating. But if you've got a mobile phone, now this is my iPhone, I'm just streaming it to my PC. Of course, emails, mobile phones present images immediately without the user having to download those images. And of course the GIFs would be presented in their full animated form in the same way. So again, a great way to and an innovative way to capture the attention of the recipient. Now the third new control that they've introduced is icons. So here it is. If we drag this onto the template, drop it in there, and you can see that immediately there's a placeholder for a single icon, but I could add as many icons as I want to. And icons are basically just small formatted representations of any images in your image library that you want to use as an icon rather than an image. So if we just click on change image, I can select an image from my library, or I can upload some other images. Let's grab a few more here and upload them into my system from my desktop. These are all fairly similar, just little product logos. So I can pick any one of those and it puts it in there. Add another icon, change image, pick the next one, etc, etc. So I could add as many icons as I like. And once those icons are in place, in terms of what you can do with them, if you slide the more options slider to the right, in each case you can link to an image. So you can link to a URL, so if somebody clicks on those icons, it goes somewhere, does something. And the fourth and final new control is title. So title here just allows you to introduce a block into your template, and this might be, I suppose, of more interest to web developers and people that understand header tags. So you can include within the title block H1, H2, H3 headers to allow you to manage consistent titles on the template. Now, I've got to be honest and say that I can't find any practical use for this title block, but if anybody else is able to do so, please do share with me. Okay, that's about the size of it. So there are three resources that I want to signpost to you. The first of those is, and I've given you short links to these, what's new in version 23. So if you just type into a browser tinyurl.com/what's new in v23, just as I've presented it here, and that will take you to an Act knowledge base article that describes the features in their language, and that might be a useful resource that you want to take a look at. There is also another link to a knowledge base article, tinyurl.com/v23 what's fixed. I've just tried to make this short and memorable. Now what that is, it's a link to a page that tells you what bugs they've fixed in actually all versions of Act. So it isn't just version 23, it will show you what's been fixed in each version and update of the product over the years, but of course the most recent ones addressed in V23 are at the top of that article. And then thirdly, if you do want to, if you feel brave, you want to go ahead and download the new Act version 23 version, if you have locally installed on-premise Act, then I've put a shortcut here to where you can get the download media. So tinyurl.com/v23 download. Now that link will in fact take you to this download page, and you'll notice that there are, well, in fact, 3 download buttons on there. So Act Windows Client is used by anybody who has the Act application installed locally on their laptop or PC, and probably the server. The only situation where you would want to download and install anything other than Act Windows Client is this one on the right here, Act Web Client, if you're installing Act Premium for Web on your own server, because you want to publish the database for use via browser, either across your own internal network or via the public internet through a SSL security certificate. So if you do that already, so if your database is set up as a web service or a browser accessible service, that's the application that you need installed on the server. But everything else, laptops, desktops, it's Act Windows Client. The Act Web API component at the bottom there, again, that's if you need to install it on just on a server, but you might want to get in touch with us and we can talk through how and where that should be deployed if you're at all uncertain. I hope that's been of use to you. Thank you for your attention, and as always, if we can offer any further assistance, please do get in touch with us. Just call our main number and ask to speak to somebody in the Act support team, or just drop us an email at the usual support email address, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you.